Ladies and gentlemen, recently there have been persistent off-the-record reports suggesting that the relationship between the king and the queen consort is no longer as stable as the public image would have us believe. They have been seen appearing separately. Joint engagements have become increasingly rare. And the question now echoing through the palace is this: has an irreversible line been crossed behind the doors of Buckingham Palace? According to sources we have accessed, this fracture did not begin with a public argument or a visible scandal. It began with a discovery serious enough to force the royal security apparatus into immediate action. An unusual device was found inside Camilla's private quarters, not in a shared space, not in a ceremonial area, but in her personal room, a place that should have been absolutely secure and beyond scrutiny. This discovery instantly triggered the highest level of security protocol. Files were sealed, personnel were questioned, and most importantly, the king was briefed directly. What followed left no photographs, no ceremony, no carefully worded public statement, only a decree signed in absolute silence. According to close sources, this document carried permanent consequences, not temporary, not symbolic, but a definitive decision to remove Camilla from the core structures of power, a decision made swiftly, coldly, and without room for debate. From that moment on, Camilla reportedly vanished from the centers of coordination. Schedules that once included her name were quietly altered. Meetings no longer reserved a seat for her. And most telling of all was the total silence from the palace. No denial, no confirmation. A kind of silence that usually appears only when the truth is too sensitive to be spoken aloud. So what exactly was that device? Why was its discovery serious enough for the king to sign a decree excluding Camilla? And could this be the final move in a power struggle that has been simmering for years? What do you think is really happening behind the palace walls? Has Camilla truly been removed from the center of power? Or is this an elaborate cover story? Leave your thoughts in the comments and stay with us as we continue the investigation in the video ahead. The November rain lashed heavy droplets against the thick glass panes of Balmoral Castle, creating a symphony of gloom that enveloped the cold, gray stone architecture. Inside King Charles III's private study, the atmosphere was even more frigid than the temperature outside. No fireplace could dispel the icy tension that reigned between the two most powerful men in the United Kingdom. Prince William stood erect beside the polished black oak desk that dated back to the Victorian era. He did not sit. His posture exuded the readiness of a soldier before battle. On the desk, lying stark and threatening, was a thick file with an ash-gray cover. There was no title, no royal seal, only a small identification code in the right corner. Project C. William placed his hand on the file, sliding it gently toward his father. The sound of paper friction against wood rang out dryly in the silence of the room. "Father," William began, his voice low, but carrying the weight of tempered steel. "We cannot delay for another second. What you're about to see and hear is no longer rumor or suspicion. It is forensic evidence of a systematic theft on the largest scale in modern royal history." King Charles sat deep in his red velvet armchair, his eyes sunken, etched with the weary crow's feet of an aging monarch, torn between personal affection and sovereign duty. He looked at the file, then back at his son. In that gaze, the hesitation usually present when Camilla was mentioned had vanished, replaced by a pained resignation. "I know she spends lavishly," Charles sighed, his voice like the sound of crumbling dry leaves. "But theft, William, are you certain?" "Not just theft, father. It is the dissipation of national assets." William opened the first page. It was a long list detailed with dates, locations, and estimated values. The names that appeared caused Charles to squint in shock. The Queen Mother Mary's sapphire brooch, Queen Elizabeth's Tahitian black pearl necklace, and most importantly, a 12-carat pink diamond from a personal collection that had never been made public. These items did not vanish by chance. William pointed to a complex cash flow chart on the next page. She used diplomatic shipping networks to bypass customs inspections. The jewelry was dismantled, the gems separated from their settings and funneled to black market auctions in Hong Kong and Dubai. The proceeds did not return to the royal purse, but flowed directly into shell companies and tax havens like Fiji and Panama. As Charles tremblingly took the bank report, figures in the millions of pounds danced before his eyes. He felt his chest tighten. The woman he had fought the world to marry, the one he believed to be his final spiritual support, turned out to be a parasite hollowing out his family's legacy from the inside. Her greed has exceeded the limits of tolerance, William continued, giving his father no time to soften. But the money is just the surface. MI6 has confirmed she is secretly lobbying trusted parliamentarians to amend the Regency Act. She wants to ensure that if your health fails, she will wield real power, not just be a figurehead queen consort. She wants to push Kate and me to the sidelines. Charles closed his eyes. The image of Camilla graciously pouring tea for him every morning shattered in an instant, replaced by the image of an old wolf baring its fangs. I was wrong, he whispered, and his voice filled with bitterness. I thought love could transform human nature, but her greed is a bottomless pit. He opened his eyes, looking straight at William. For the first time in years, Charles looked at his son not as a child needing guidance, but as a future king full of mettle. How do you want to handle this? Strip everything, William replied, his voice cold and decisive as a falling blade. No negotiation, no mercy. Next month, we will announce that her titles are being revoked due to severe mental health issues and involvement in corruption. She will be taken to a remote facility in Scotland, far from the media and power. It is time to restore purity to the throne. Agreed, Charles nodded, picking up his pen. His hand trembled slightly, but the signature was decisive. He signed the secret sanction order. Do it. I give you full authority. End this nightmare. 2 floors away, in a luxurious bedroom reeking of lilies, a flower Diana had detested, but Camilla deliberately displayed everywhere. Camilla Parker Bowles sat before her vanity. She was not looking in the mirror. She was wearing a tiny earpiece connected to a modern transceiver cleverly hidden beneath the velvet of an antique jewelry box. It was a military-grade listening device she had bribed a corrupt security officer to plant in a lampstand in Charles's study 3 months ago. Every word, every syllable of the conversation in the study rang clearly in her ear. Instead of fear or panic upon hearing the sentence of exile, Camilla's bright red lips slowly curled up, forming a twisted, malicious smile. Her eyes flashed with the look of a predator that had just discovered a fatal flaw in its opponent. She took off the earpiece, tossing it lightly onto the gold-plated vanity. Strip my titles, put me in a mental asylum, Camilla whispered to herself in the mirror, her voice hissing through her teeth. Who do you think I am? I survived the storm of Diana. I endured the world's spit to climb to this position. Do you think you can kick me out into the street like a mangy dog? William. She stood up, walking toward the oil painting hanging on the wall. She slid the frame aside, revealing a wall safe with fingers laden with diamond rings. Rings that should not have belonged to her. She spun the code and retrieved a small jet-black USB drive. William, my dear stepson, she sneered, caressing the USB like a treasure. You want war? I will give you war. I hold a nuclear bomb in my hand. Let's see who gets destroyed when I detonate it. Camilla believed she held the lifeblood of the monarchy. She did not know that the moment she touched that USB drive, she had stepped 1 foot into the grave she had dug for herself. Camilla was not an impulsive woman. She knew timing was everything. That very stormy night, as Balmoral Castle fell into slumber, she activated her counterattack plan. In her private office, Camilla connected the USB to a laptop encrypted with 3 layers of security. The screen displayed the interface of a top-tier professional audio editing software, a tool usually only seen in Hollywood studios or Black Ops intelligence agencies. She initiated an encrypted video call with a mysterious figure. The man on the screen had a gaunt face, wore thick glasses, and sat in a dim room full of electronic equipment. He was a sound wizard in the underworld, one who had forged evidence for Eastern European mafia bosses to blackmail politicians. "What do you want this time?" the man asked, his voice crackling through the computer speakers. "Make it sharp," Camilla ordered coldly. "I have the raw material. Turn it into a murder weapon." She sent the original audio file. It consisted of disjointed recordings she had secretly captured of William and Charles over the past 2 years. Innocuous sentences about removing incompetent security staff or discussing crisis management scenarios for traffic accidents were now mercilessly dissected under the technician's magical hands. Words were stripped from their context, spliced together, pitch shifted, and layered with background noise. The sound of falling rain, distant ambulance sirens, labored breathing, all were added to create a chilling atmosphere. After 3 hours of intense work, the result was a 45-second tape that would shake the soul of anyone who heard it. In the fake recording, William's distinctive voice rang out cold and ruthless. "We must eliminate her, just like we did years ago. We cannot let her stand in the way." Following this was a simulated noise of a screeching metal collision, shattering glass, and wailing sirens. Charles's voice responded, sounding ominous and complicit. "Make it clean, leave no trace. The public will believe it was an accident." Camilla put on her headphones, listening to the tape 3 times. With each listen, satisfaction welled up inside her. This was not just slander. This was a psychological strike aimed straight at the greatest pain, the never-healed scar of the British public, the death of Princess Diana. She knew the mob did not need legal truth. They acted on emotion, and this tape would turn William into a cold-blooded murderer and Charles into a cruel accomplice. "Send it." Camilla hit the enter key decisively. The destination of the tape was not the BBC or reputable British papers where the royal family could censor or apply pressure. She sent it to the Globe Sentinel, a notorious tabloid media conglomerate in the US, which always hungered for royal scandals and had an online readership of hundreds of millions. The next morning, as London was just waking up in the fog, the news exploded like a nuclear bomb across the ocean. The homepage of the Globe Sentinel ran a blazing red headline, taking up the entire screen. "Shocking evidence. Leaked audio of William and Charles plotting to eliminate Camilla like Diana." The article accompanying the audio clip, which had been blurred in parts to increase mystery and bypass automated censorship, spread at breakneck speed on Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. Within an hour following, the hashtags took the #1 spot on global trending. Conspiracy theories sprouted like mushrooms after rain. Images of William were photoshopped with devils. Charles was vilified everywhere. At Buckingham Palace, the chaos was unprecedented. The press office phone lines were paralyzed. Staff ran back and forth, their faces pale. However, in stark contrast to the storm outside, inside the Situation Room, a highly secured secret waiting room at Kensington Palace, a terrifying silence prevailed. William sat at the head of the table, his hands clasped together on the surface. He wore a white shirt with sleeves rolled up high, revealing a sinewy, powerful look. Beside him was Kate, the wife who always stood by his side, holding her husband's hand reassuringly. Opposite them sat the highest-level advisors from MI6 and crisis management experts. They were not panicking. They were watching large screens displaying real-time data on the spread of the fake news. "She took the bait," William said, his voice so calm, it made the communications director shudder. There was no anger, only the cold calculation of a chess player waiting for his opponent's wrong move. "What is our response, Your Highness?" an advisor asked. "Deny nothing, confirm nothing. No press conference," William ordered. "Issue only a single brief statement. The royal family is coordinating with international security agencies to investigate the origin of the misinformation. That is all." "But sir, public opinion is—" William raised his hand, cutting off the advisor. His eyes darkened deep and inscrutable. "Our silence right now is the weapon. It will make her believe we are afraid, that we are in disarray. She will think she has won, and when a person thinks they have won, They let their guard down. William knew what Camilla was waiting for. She was waiting for him to lose his temper, for Charles to have a stroke, and for a negotiation in the shadows where she could name her price for silence. But she had severely underestimated Diana's son. "Let her enjoy this phantom victory for another 24 hours, William said, looking at the blinking red dot on the world map displaying the location of the server distributing the news. "The more she struggles, the tighter the trap becomes. She thinks the tape is a weapon, but in reality, it is the death warrant she signed for herself." It turned out William was one step ahead. He knew about the listening device. He had deliberately leaked the information about the plan to strip rights to provoke Camilla. He knew she would react by launching the dirtiest blow possible. And to launch that blow, she would be forced to contact figures in the shadows, forced to use anonymous accounts, and most importantly, she would have to expose the vulnerabilities of her underground financial network. While the world went mad over the rumors, Camilla Parker Bowles was enjoying the most glorious moment of her life. At Clarence's house, she hosted a discreet tea party with a few close friends. In reality, sycophants who trailed after power. Camilla raised a glass of expensive champagne, her laughter crisp but unnatural ringing through the gilded room. "You see," she said, her eyes sparkling with arrogance. "Weak men must eventually kneel before women. Charles and William think they are kings, but I am the one controlling the chessboard." She believed the palace's silence was a sign of surrender. She was already dreaming of a massive alimony settlement and the title of Queen Mother for life. But thousands of miles away, in a secure room deep beneath London, the secret headquarters of the MI6 division dedicated to royal protection, William was making his decisive move. He stood before a giant screen displaying a world map. A red dot was blinking in the Fiji archipelago amidst the vast Pacific Ocean. "Is the connection established?" William asked briefly, his eyes never leaving the red dot. "Ready, Your Highness. The signal is pinpointed to a seaside villa in Suva. He just completed a transfer of $5 million to an anonymous account," the chief agent reported, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Connect." On the large screen appeared the red, sweat-slicked face of Andrew Parker Bowles, Camilla's ex-husband. He was wearing a gaudy floral shirt, holding a tropical cocktail, sitting on a lounge chair, looking out at the blue sea. But the smile of enjoyment on his lips vanished, and the cocktail glass fell to the ground, shattering when the screen of his personal computer suddenly went black, then displayed William's cold face. Your Highness?" Andrew stammered. His face drained of blood. He looked around wildly as if afraid William would step out of the screen. "Hello, Mr. Andrew," William said, his tone gentle, but carrying the weight of 1,000 pounds, echoing through the computer speakers with almost zero latency. "Is Fiji beautiful this time of year? Surely the 50 million pounds from the illicit sale of Queen Elizabeth's ruby jewelry set is enough for you to live comfortably there for the rest of your life." Andrew Parker Bowles slumped into his chair. He knew he had been exposed. His breathing became rapid. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just on vacation." "Don't deny it, Andrew. It wastes us both our time," William interrupted, holding up a file before the camera. "I have complete bank statements with international SWIFT codes, CCTV images from Heathrow Airport when you transported the goods through the VIP gate, and your signature on the forged documents of the shell company. Under international law for smuggling national artifacts, money laundering, and tax evasion, you will face 30 years in Fiji's harshest prison or be extradited to the UK to die of old age in a dungeon." Andrew trembled like a leaf in a storm. He knew William was not joking. He knew how terrifying the power of the royal family could be when provoked. "It was Camilla. It was all her," Andrew screamed, his feigned loyalty collapsing instantly before fear. "She made me do it. She said it was her private property. Gifts from Charles. I was just following orders. She threatened to cut off support for my children if I didn't help." William smiled, a cold smile that did not reach his eyes. "I know, and that is why I called you instead of calling Interpol." William sent a PDF file through the chat window. Open it, Andrew. Andrew tremblingly clicked the mouse. It was a capture of encrypted emails Camilla had sent to her private lawyer in Switzerland. The email content clearly outlined a plan. If the jewelry affair was exposed, place all responsibility on Andrew Parker Bowles. Create fake evidence that he had exploited his old connections to steal keys to the vault. Reading those lines, Andrew's face turned from fearful to purple with rage. That vicious woman, I helped her for so many years. I kept all her dirty secrets. She sold you out a long time ago. Andrew, William said, his voice hardening. You were just a sacrificial pawn to keep her clean. What do you want? Andrew asked, his voice hoarse, eyes desperate. I will do anything. You have 24 hours, William commanded. I don't need you to come back to the UK. I need you to be an online witness. I need you to provide all evidence of Camilla directing you to launder money. William paused for a moment, leaning closer to the camera as if seeing through the other man's soul. And most importantly, I know your habit of being careful. You always record every business video call for protection. I want the surveillance video from Camilla's office yesterday when she instructed the technician to edit the tape. Andrew swallowed hard. He had indeed installed keylogger spyware and screen recording on Camilla's computer to ensure she didn't burn the bridge regarding money. He hadn't expected William to know every minute detail like this. If I give it to you, what will I get? Freedom, William replied immediately. You will be immune from prosecution. Keep a portion of your legal assets and live peacefully for the rest of your life in Fiji. No one will disturb you, but you must act right now before Camilla has a chance to wipe the traces. Andrew Parker Bowles took no more than 3 seconds to think. The hatred from the betrayal and the fear of imprisonment drove his decision. I will send it immediately. Destroy that witch for me. Just as William predicted, after the fake news spread and created sufficient pressure, Camilla demanded a face-to-face meeting with Charles and William. She chose the state drawing room of Buckingham Palace, the most majestic location, a symbol of supreme power where monarchs received heads of state. The heavy gilded doors opened. Camilla entered. Today she did not wear elegant royal attire. She wore a silk dress in a blazing red like blood, ostentatious and blinding, breaking all rules of court dress. Around her neck she wore a large multi-layered pearl necklace. Her head was held high, her arrogant gaze sweeping over Charles and William, seated at the long table in the center of the room. She did not bow to the king. She pulled out the chair opposite them, sat down, crossed her legs, acting with the demeanor of a superior granting a favor. Well, Camilla opened, her voice full of challenge, echoing in the vast room. Have you seen the power of the media? The mob is screaming for justice for me. They call me the second Princess Diana. How ironic, isn't it, Charles? Charles looked at his wife. In his eyes there was no longer anger, only disgust and extreme exhaustion. He looked at her as one looks at a stranger, a monster he had unintentionally nurtured. What do you want, Camilla? Why did you do this? Camilla smirked, tossing a piece of paper onto the table. Simple, Charles. You are old. You will abdicate immediately due to health reasons. William will ascend the throne, but, she emphasized every word, tapping her ring-adorned finger on the table, I will keep the title of Queen Mother. I want a lifetime allowance of £20 million a year. I want full ownership and use of Clarence House until I die, and naturally a waiver of liability, forbidding anyone from investigating my finances. She turned to look straight at William, her eyes narrowing threateningly. Sign this agreement, William, or tomorrow I will release the original uncensored version of the recording. I have a script ready about you hiring hitmen. The whole world will believe me. You know, as much as people love Diana, they will hate you just as much when they believe you wanted to kill your stepmother. The room was silent as a grave. Only the ticking of the pendulum clock counted down the time. Camilla thought that silence was surrender, fear of her power. She pulled out a gold pen, sliding it toward Charles. Sign it, Charles. Don't make things difficult. You owe me this after all the years I had to live in the shadow of your ex-wife. William remained seated, his face revealing no emotion. He looked at Camilla, his gaze strangely calm, like a lake before a storm. Do you truly think you are smarter than all of us? Camilla? William asked, his low voice breaking the silence. Camilla laughed aloud, a wild manic laugh. Smart? My naive William. In this palace, being smart is nothing compared to being ruthless. I hold the handle of the knife. You have no choice. Yes, we do. William slowly stood up. He stretched to his full height, his shadow casting long over Camilla, creating an invisible pressure. He picked up a remote control lying on the table. Our choice is the truth. The truth? Camilla sneered, her eyes still gleaming with defiance. History is written by the victors, and I am winning. No, you lost from the moment you started, William said coldly and pressed the button. The velvet curtain behind Charles slowly rose, revealing a giant LED screen used for virtual meetings. The screen flared to life. Camilla turned to look, and the smile on her lips froze as if splashed with acid. On the screen was not a news broadcast, but a high-quality live video call. The face of Andrew Parker Bowles appeared clearly, flanked by a British consulate official and an international lawyer. Andrew? Camilla gasped, her voice faltering, the clutch in her hand falling to the floor. What are you doing there? Hello, Camilla, Andrew said through the screen, his voice filled with gloating and bitterness. I just had a very interesting conversation with Prince William, and I sent him a small gift. Do you remember the computer you used yesterday? The screen switched scenes. It was a black and white video from a screen capture and a webcam that Andrew had secretly installed. In the video, Camilla was sitting in front of the computer wearing headphones, pointing at the screen while talking on the phone with the sound technician. Cut this part. Splice the crash sound after William's sentence. Make it sound truly catastrophic. Yes, I want him to look like a bloodthirsty demon. Every sound, every gesture, every cruel instruction she gave while fabricating the fake tape was recorded sharply. Undeniably. Camilla stood frozen. The blood in her body seemed to congeal. Her face turned from red to stark white, then ashen gray. She bolted upright, knocking her chair backward with a crash. This is fake. You staged this. Andrew, you dare betray me? I am your wife, she screamed, her voice cracking. You intended to betray me first. Camilla, Andrew's voice roared from the screen full of resentment. You planned to send me to prison to take the fall for the smuggling. I read the email you sent the lawyer. Stop playing the victim. You are a devil. William turned off the screen, turning back to face Camilla. He threw another file onto the table, thicker and more detailed than the previous one. Here is the evidence of you embezzling public funds, smuggling national artifacts, and conspiring to slander the royal family, William said, his voice ice cold, each word hammering into the air. I also know you planted a bug in Balmoral. You thought you heard secrets? No. I let you hear what I wanted you to hear. I baited you into releasing this fake fatal blow so you would expose your financial vulnerabilities with Andrew. Every single one of your moves, from calling the American press to blackmailing us today, was all part of my script. Camilla stumbled back, her legs trembling too much to stand firm. She looked around, seeking an escape, but saw only cold walls. She looked at Charles, pleading for help, hoping for a shred of remaining affection. Charles, you can't do this to me. I stood by you when the whole world turned its back on you. Save me, Camilla screamed, tears smearing her thick makeup, revealing an aging, wrinkled face full of fear. Charles slowly stood up. He did not look at her. He looked into the void. You were not the one standing by me. You were the one using me. You are the biggest mistake of my life and my greatest regret regarding Diana. William stepped closer to Camilla, his imposing aura causing her to cower into the corner of the room. Game over. Camilla, You are not a chess player. You are just a dark, greedy, and foolish pawn that needs to be removed from the board to protect the king. William delivered the verdict cold and ruthless, allowing absolutely no negotiation. You will be stripped of the title of Queen Consort, Duchess, and all other royal titles immediately. There will be no public trial for you to put on a show. The media will receive a press release at 5 o'clock p.m. today. You are suffering from acute paranoia and late-stage dementia, forcing a withdrawal from public life for special treatment. No, I am not crazy. I am not going anywhere. This is my home, Camilla screamed, lunging toward the table to grab the file and tear it apart. But two large royal guards, faces impassive, emerged from the shadows behind a secret door. They seized her arms, locking them behind her back. You will be taken to the castle of May in the far north of Scotland. William continued, his voice unwavering despite his stepmother's frantic struggles. There, surrounded by cliffs and cold seas, you will live under 24/7 medical and security surveillance. No phone, no internet, no private servants, no press interviews. You will live the rest of your life in absolute silence. That is the price for daring to smear my mother's honor in defiling the throne. Let me go, Charles. Don't let him do this. I am the queen, Camilla shrieked, thrashing wildly. Her hair was disheveled, her red dress askew. She tried to bite the guard's hand, but to no avail. A female courtier stepped forward, coldly unclasped the pearl necklace from Camilla's neck and removed the diamond rings from her hands. These belong to the crown, madam. You no longer have the right to wear them, the courtier said, placing them in a black velvet box. That deprivation was like the final knife stabbing into Camilla's pride. She let out a howl of anguish, not from physical pain, but from the agony of seeing her power stripped naked before her eyes. The image of luxury and nobility vanished completely, leaving only a mad woman who had lost everything. Take her away, Charles ordered. Turning his back, the guards dragged Camilla out of the state drawing room. The sounds of screaming, cursing, and heels scraping against the wooden floor echoed through the palace corridor, then grew fainter and fainter until they were extinguished behind the heavy wooden doors, slamming shut with a thud. Silence returned, heavy but peaceful. William stood there adjusting his cuffs. He felt a 1,000-pound weight lift from his shoulders, a burden that had pressed upon his family for decades. He turned to look at his father. Charles stood leaning against the fireplace, looking 10 years older, but his shoulders had stopped trembling. I'm sorry, Father, William said softly. No. Charles looked up, his eyes welling with tears but shining with relief. You did the right thing. You did what I did not have the courage to do. You saved this dynasty. Your mother Diana would be proud of you. 1 week later, the London sky was unusually blue after days of torrential rain. Thousands of citizens gathered before the gates of Buckingham Palace, cheering loudly as the royal standard was raised. On the main balcony, King Charles, Prince William, Princess Kate, and the 3 royal children stepped out to wave to the crowd. There was no sign of Camilla. The press release regarding her sudden illness had been received by the public with feigned sympathy. But insiders in the political world understood that a bloody purge had just taken place in the shadows. And the winner was the new generation. In his private study after the ceremony, William stood before a blazing fireplace. In his hand were the fake recorder and the USB containing all evidence of Camilla's crimes. He didn't need to keep them anymore. Andrew Parker Bowles was still in Fiji, docile, under control. Camilla was locked away in the cold tower in Scotland, where she would spend the rest of her life talking to stone walls. Kate walked to her husband's side, placing a hand on his shoulder. She wore a dress of deep blue, the color Diana loved. Are you all right? William smiled, watching the dancing flames. His smile was now relieved and warm. I have never felt better. He tossed the recorder and the USB into the fire. The flames roared up, swallowing the dark conspiracies, the lies, and a chapter of history full of controversy and pain for the royal family. The plastic melted, emitting black smoke, then vanished into nothingness. The darkness has faded, William said, squeezing his wife's hand, looking toward the window where sunlight was flooding the garden. Now is the time for us to rebuild everything for Father, for the children, and for Mother. In the farthest reaches of Scotland, in a cold stone room of the Castle of May, Camilla sat huddled on a simple iron bed. She looked out the barred window where only the gray North Sea roared and steep cliffs stood slippery. No one heard her voice. No one cared who she was. She opened her mouth to scream in anger, but no sound came out. Power, fame, money, all had drifted away with the biting north wind. Do you believe this decision is exactly what Camilla deserved? Is this a moment you have been waiting for far longer than the palace ever expected? For years, Camilla's rise has been marked by controversy, quiet resentment, and unanswered questions. If these reports are true, then what we are witnessing is not a sudden act of cruelty, but the final consequence of choices made behind closed doors over decades. Power in the monarchy has always come with an unspoken rule. Once trust is broken, it can never be fully restored. And tonight, that reality appears to have caught up with her. But this story is far from over. The silence from the palace may be louder than any official statement, and what follows could reshape the balance of power at the very top. If you have thoughts on this decision, share them in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss what happens next.